it feels extremely odd to be on this stage because it's a transmedia TED. And I start with a confession. I hate the whole word. I really don't like the word transmedia. I'm a simple guy coming from Finland, and I like really simple words. And if I would sum up my biggest passions in 2 words, I would say that I love to dream and I love to do. Those are kind of like my biggest passions. I love to think big, I love to come up with big ideas, but I also love to make them happen. So my feeling of the world today is that we have way too little people who are creative hard workers, who come up with big ideas and who really fight to make them happen. And that's why this guy over here is my biggest hero of them all. We sort of like think that transmedia is an exciting word, and we are going to doing something totally adventurous. But if we are comparing it to the stuff that Walt Disney did, for example, in 1920s, there were people who were making movies, and there was a lot of discussion back then that you cannot really make cartoons speak because they are drawings and they don't speak. And Walt Disney's company was almost in bankruptcy. And he had a big dream. He said that I want to make drawings speak. And everybody said that that's absolutely nonsense because they don't speak, which is of course true. And what Walt Disney did is that he set up a screen in a parking lot. And he organized people making sounds behind the screen. He organized people doing the voiceovers and so on and so on. And the result was that they couldn't stop before 2 a.m. in the morning because they were getting too many encores. What happened in 1940s, there was a war going on all over the world. And people said that things that you cannot do is that there were extremely strong blocks. There was serious art, and then there was a pop art. And Walt Disney wanted to combine these two. What he wanted to do is that he wanted to put a classical music soundtrack to a long animation film. And everybody was saying that that's totally impossible, it cannot be done. He also had another hobby or passion. He wanted to spray perfume to the movie theaters in order to enhance the experience. And again, people said that that's absolutely undoable. Of course, that's 3D, 4D, 5D, but that happened. Then in 1950s, he said that he wanted to change the face of the amusement parks totally. And he was fascinated, for example, about the passenger streams. So how people walk inside the amusement parks. And again, people said that that's something which cannot be done. And Walt Disney said that the mission of Disney company was to make people happy. And he had other passion as well. He wanted to change the way how people perceive dreaming. And he said that if you can dream it, you can do it. And if we are analyzing Disney company today, the turnover is huge or whatever. So I could say that in part of his mission, he was extremely successful. But what he couldn't do is that he couldn't make people better dreamers and doers. Because if you are analyzing people today, people are having problems in 2 areas. They cannot really dream, and if they can, they cannot do. And that's not the way people are kind of like born with. When people are born with, they are excited about the life. When they are 2 or 3 or 4, the world is full of possibilities. And what I was doing some serious research for this speech. And I went to the birthday party of a 5-year-old 2 weeks ago in Finland. And I said that sit down, and I was asking about people, what are your dreams? And the first guy said that, that's an interesting question because my dream is that I want to be Sherlock Holmes. I said, why? Because he's a cool guy and I want to catch all the criminals. Then I said, fine, okay. The second one, and this is a fantastic. She said that, what do you want to do? I want to be a princess who climbs to the tower of a castle, opens a window and shouts, start, and then the fireworks starts. And what an absolutely stunning dream. And this is my daughter, who is actually alone in the hotel room at the moment. Hi, Siri. And I was with Siri in our summer cottage in Helsinki last weekend. And I said that, Siri, do you have any dreams? And he said, of course I have. I have a lot of dreams. And I said, okay, what are your dreams? And Siri said to me is that I want to be a stand-up comedian and a cafe owner. And then she was asking from me, Father, do you think that you can combine those two things? And I said, of course, because there's way too little cafe owners who are also stand-up comedians. So then what happens is that people graduate, and still when you graduate, you are kind of like full of dreams. You are kind of like full of passion, is that let's do something great. Whether you call it transmedia or whatever, there's kind of like the attitude is that we can do whatever we want. It's sort of like the I have a dream kind of attitude. And then something happens. We come 30 or whatever, and everything disappears. We did an interesting study in Finland. We were asking from 100 people who are over 30 about what is their biggest dream. It could have been, I want to save all the tigers in the world using transmedia if you want. I want to go to Bhutan. I want to be happy or whatever. I want to learn how to play trombone, anything. What was the biggest dream? I want to read a book. And I was proposing this to Siri, my daughter, and Daddy said that, Daddy, that's not a dream. What do you mean? Because it's not dream-like. And actually she was right. And I've been kind of like quite fascinated is that what happens to the people who is in the tower, opening the windows and shouting, let's start the fireworks, when she comes 30 or 40, and the biggest dream is to read a book. And this has been sort of like my big passion for the past 2 or 3 years. And the world is fascinated with this problem. When you go to the Amazon or whatever, and you try to find books about this one, there's 133,000 copies about this. So people are trying to help. And I wanted to study, what is the main message if you start from the perception of Walt Disney? If you can dream it, you can do it. What are the main messages in those books that the Amazon is full of? And I was actually, this shows that how serious I take these assignments to come to the TED. I was listening 7 hours of speeches by Brian Tracy. That was the serious stuff. And it was kind of like exciting. Of course, most of the things Brian Tracy says make a lot of sense. But there's an interesting thing. He says that if you want to be happy, if you want to do something great, how it works is that you work extremely hard. You do a lot of great stuff. You wake up early. You are extremely systematic or whatever. You are ambitious. And then you can be happy. So the whole idea in all of those books is pretty much if-then. If you do something great, then you will be happy. If you climb to the mountain, then you are happy. If you win in a lottery, then you are happy. If you take a sabbatical, then you are happy. Once you retire, then you are happy. And this is kind of like leading into a world which is having 5 main problems. One of them is that you are not happy then. You are not happy now. You are happy sometime. It's hard or whatever, but once I climb to the mountain, then I'm going to be happy. The second problem is that it's putting huge pressure on climbing to the mountain or whatever. If you are taking sabbatical of 3 months, it's sort of a time is ticking, which means that I have to be happy. There's only 2 more months to be happy or whatever. Then, if you are doing something great, all the studies show that the happiness lasts roughly 6 months. Then if you buy a big house, everything is relative, because if someone buys a bigger house, your happiness is gone. And then even if you are happy, even if it's great, it means that you don't have that dream anymore. So it's kind of like a situation where only thing you can do is lose. And I've been fascinated about this whole idea, is that how could we make the Walt Disney's dream of making people better dreamers and doers, how could we keep it alive? What could we do? How could we change this whole thing? And there's another thing going on in the world, which is that power of now. And I've been reading so many articles about washing your hands. You are doing the dishes and you are thinking about doing the dishes. When you are washing the hands, you are thinking about washing the hands. I think that there's so many articles about this, is that we are about to get some skin diseases or whatever because we are washing the hands all the time. But if you're kind of like thinking what Walt Disney used to say, When Walt Disney was building Disney World or Disneyland, he said that it's not about now, it's about past and it's about future. He wants to make an adventure where people go to the history and they go to the future. And it's exciting because then I came up with an interesting guy. This is Philip Zimbardo, who was born in Sicily, and then he did his work in Stanford. At that moment, he's a professor emeritus of Stanford. And he's been studying the perception of time. And it's kind of like interesting. He thinks that happiness actually comes from how we analyze the time, how we react to the time. And he thinks that good life comes from three parts: what we have done, what we are doing, and what we will do. And the biggest problem we are having at the life is that we kind of like to think is that we are living in the moment, but we are terrified of the history. We are kind of like thinking is that, did I make the right chances or whatever? Is my life slipping away? There was a study in the US where 54% of the people think that their life is slipping away. 54% of the people. And then, of course, you are also terrified of the future. And we are living between the past and between the future, trying to live in a now and try to make fantastic transmedia and try to be happy. And in a perfect world, what you are doing now should give you energy. But the history should give you roots, and the future should give you wings. And this was sort of like the basic finding of Philip Zimbardo, and I think that it's fantastic. And then you know, once you take this one, what I've been doing is that I've been trying to analyze is that what does this mean when you take the saying of Walt Disney, if you can dream it, you can do it. And I think that when I'm analyzing people who are obviously not extremely happy, I think that you can divide them in three camps. One of the camp is dreamers. And of course, John Lennon was the ultimate dreamer. We know the song Imagine, you may say I'm a dreamer, and we kind of like this is romantic idea, you know, let's dream of a better world. But the problem with this one is that nothing happens unless something does something. And this person, for example, is Rosa Parks, who in 1955 in Alabama, she decided to stop dreaming, and she decided to step on the bus and change the world. And I think, for example, in Italy, you are having, how do you call them, Mammone. You have 30,000 people who are still dreaming at home with the mothers and so on. And there's people, you know, dreaming is fantastic, but if you only dream, if you don't do, it doesn't make you happy. Then this is the other problem, which are people who are doers. And you say that, you know, dreaming is not for me. They are dreaming of reading a book. And we are living in a life, we are living in a world where anything is possible. You can change the world. You can do tremendous things. You can do fantastic things. And we are kind of like proud that we are not having any dreams. And I think that it's actually quite sad, because we should be having a lot of dreams. But then there's the third camp, which are people who did something, and they are stuck with things which they did. And here's, for example, one sad example, who is Paul Gascoigne, who was probably one of the most talented football players in the UK. And this is how he looks now, because he had a dream. He wanted to be the best football player in the world, and he was. And that's it. And we are having a lot of people who are living in big houses, who are having big career or whatever, because the dream was to do something great. But then once they did it, it disappeared. And I've been fascinated about this whole thing, is that how could you fix this? How could you do it? And my basic idea at the moment is that I think that it's all about the balance. I'm a simple guy. I used to produce more than 100 TV shows, and I had a rule, and my rule was KISS, but it was the new KISS, which is keep it simple but smart. And it means that it's so simple that you get it in a minute, but it's so smart that once you get it, you cannot forget it. That was kind of like my rule for anything great. And what happened roughly about 3 months ago, we were in Italy. I go back like 3 years. 3 years ago, what happened is that I was laying in bed with my wife. It's not going to be as interesting as you think. And then the bed started to shake. Not for that reason. I was staring at my wife, and I said that, this is it. And my wife said, yes, it is an earthquake. And for the first time in my life, we experienced an earthquake in Italy. And kind of like same thing happened to me 3 months ago when I was getting ready for this one. I was reading books about dreams. I was analyzing, reading studies about what are the key problems. And I came up with an idea is that, wow, this is actually everything I need to know. This is my meaning of life. And I explain you what is the meaning of life. For me, the meaning of life is the balance between 3 things. Is dreaming, doing, and did, things you did. But this is not enough. This is not enough because the key is that actually what you have to do is that you have to make it a carousel. So for me, a good life is something that you start with big dreams. You are dreaming of fantastic things. You are dreaming of changing the world, learning skills, how to juggle or whatever. And then you decide to do something. And then once you did it, you're kind of like excited. If it was great, you're happy for yourself. If it was a flop, you think that, wow, I tried it, no matter. And then you continue and get back to the dreaming, because that's the way how you become happy. And this is how you should continue. And I think that for me, this is the ultimate meaning of life, to find the balance between dreaming and doing. And I think that this is something that would actually make Walt Disney happy as well. Thanks.